What's the deal with Willie the Boatman that's now on my set?
Yeah.
So you got to explain a bit of that. It's just, I've never really had like alcohol on my set ever
we've
before.
had a takeover, everyone.
I know, sorry. You were like, oh, you want to come on the podcast? I'm like, only if I can drink. But no, so Willie the Boatman is my friend Patrick's brewery based over in Marrickville. We're currently sipping on a Marrickville lager. And I've just worked with Paddy for, 5 or 6 years, and a really close friend of mine. And he knows how to make a beer, it turns out. So I thought I'd bring over a little bit of Marrickville influence to you, and we got a hazy IPA, we got the Albo, which is quite fitting, obviously, a little Albanese inspired situation, and then this one's my personal favourite, the Marrickville Lager. It's just easy drinking, and why not, mate? It's a lovely evening, made even more lovely with a couple of beers.
Well, Sammy, welcome to the pod, man. I'm pumped that you're here.
Mate, it's great to be here. I'm excited. I'm nervous. I won't lie to you.
You're nervous?
A little bit, I know.
Really?
Might not seem it, but deep down, I'm a crying little girl.
Brooke and I were a bit nervous when you brought the crew in here because we didn't know how to react to all your followers.
I know. There's a few of them floating around, a couple of cameras in your face, but no, it's good fun.
Yeah. So what happened in the day of SamYoung before getting to the northern beaches?
Before getting to the beaches, mate, today was actually quite a productive day. I headed to obviously doing weekly YouTube uploads now, so we filmed another one of those, and it actually took a little bit of a walk down memory lane in the episode we filmed today, and spoke about some of the ridiculous financial decisions I've made when it comes to automotive purchases, and outed myself as a terrible trader, and spoke about how I lost heaps of money. So hopefully the people enjoy it.
Can you actually tell me a bit about the cars that you were going through today? Like, I love the nostalgia because this podcast is all about nostalgia. What happened with your first car and whatnot?
God, there's not a lot of things I haven't owned, to be honest, in terms of genres of vehicle. I started off as a car guy through and through, and actually like hated four-wheel drives. And it's funny how things change, but started off with like an old bug-eye Subaru non-turbo. I just P-plated the heck out of that car, like slammed it, disgusting wheels, plasti dipped everything I could get my hands on, like put the biggest subwoofer in the boot that I could and just drove it around obnoxiously. And that a little bit of a rite of passage, right?
Yeah.
And then quickly fell into four-wheel drives, had a few of those, had a really bad experience with a GU Patrol, spooked me of four-wheel drives, got back into cars, had a Sylvia, a Chaser, like really got into that side of things when I got my full license, and then went full circle, and now I'm back in the four-wheel drive game, and it's paying the bills and keeping me busy.
It's taken off the four-wheel drive thing. I've seen, Brooke and I have looked over a bit of your data, or not data, the videos, but how is like the four-wheel drive scene? It's just, it's a bit wild coming from those, you work with race car drivers yourself, but what's the whole deal with the four-wheel drive thing?
It's taken off. Like when I bought my current car 5 years ago, it was $17,000, and it was basically ready to go around the country. That same car today, it would be $35,000 to $40,000 for the same thing in the same condition as what it was when I bought it. And one thing we noticed working in the automotive scene is like the car park, like what we talk about the car park in terms of the genre of cars that we see most. It's shifting from Commodores and Falcons and performance cars, and shifting to dual cabs and four-wheel drives of all ages. So it's just popping off in Australia, and I think a lot of it was probably to do with COVID. People are trapped within the Australian border for the past 2 years and still want to go on holidays. So one of the best things you could do is get out a four-wheel drive and load the screaming kids in the back and go drive for 16 hours. That's paradise for some people. So I think that's sort of what's attributed to it.
Yeah. What's the deal with Willie the Boatman that's now on my set?
Yeah.
So you got to explain a bit of that. It's just, I've never really had alcohol on my set ever
we've
before.
had a takeover, everyone.
I know, sorry. You were like, oh, you want to come on the podcast? I'm like, only if I can drink. But no, so Willie the Boatman is my friend Patrick's brewery based over in Marrickville. We're currently sipping on a Marrickville lager. And I've just worked with Paddy for 5 or 6 years, and a really close friend of mine. And he knows how to make a beer, it turns out. So I thought I'd bring over a little bit of Marrickville influence to you, and we got a hazy IPA, we got the Albo, which is quite fitting, obviously, a little Albanese inspired situation, and then this one's my personal favourite, the Marrickville Lager. It's just easy drinking, and why not, mate? It's a lovely evening, made even more lovely with a couple of beers.
Yeah. Have you lived over Marrickville Way, or did you always live in like the North Shore?
Yeah,
area?
so I born and bred pretty much in just near Mossman, and I spent about a year living over in Marrickville and 6 years working there, and that's how I sort of got to know Patrick and Willie the boatman. I spent way too many evenings after work there, and there was actually one point where I was like doing the meat tray raffles for him on a Friday night, and I had like my little spiel, and I got on the microphone, probably like 10 beers deep, and would try to yak to all these, have a yarn to all these people in there and give away a meat tray or two. So, we just have a little bit of fun, but yeah, pretty much always been on the lower North Shore or the beaches. Yeah.
Yeah. And with you, when you were a kid growing up, what school did you go to first before I ask more of the kid memories?
Yeah. So growing up, like primary, just went to Neutral Bay Public, and then high school went to Knox.
Yeah,
up in Wahroonga.
Yeah, right. Were you like a popular kid at school, or did you go between group to group, or what was your memory as a kid growing up?
I reckon I was, to be honest, like a little bit of a floater. I was never really like massive into the footy or anything like that, but also like never really academic. So I was sort of drifted in between, a little bit of everything, I think, and sort of only really found my feet in sort of the later years of school.
Yeah.
But there was, I've got some close mates now that I met in high school that we still see all of them every week for beers. We do a boys' dinner and that kind of thing, which is nice. But yeah, it was sort of, I don't know, it was sort of like fell into this like little car community at school of people that liked Mighty Car Mods and watching those guys on YouTube instead of studying, and that's exactly what I did. So,
so you were like looking at that as a kid and looking at that on TV and go, hey, maybe I could do that one day.
To be honest, no. So it was actually interesting. So I was always into it as a hobby, but never thought of it as a job or a career path, and actually left. I graduated school after year 12 and dived straight into a uni degree and did nursing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I know, right? So you wouldn't pick it.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't stick with it too long. I have a pretty short attention span and pretty low threshold for changing beds and that kind of thing. So after 12 months of nursing, I said, look, this isn't going to work out. So at the time, I was lucky enough to sort of fall into a full-time job. I was actually making coffee for around 6 years previously, but fell into a full-time job at SparesBox.
Yep.
And then things sort of just escalated from there.
Yeah, right. So I got to go back to, obviously, you saying you were struggling to make beds and all like that.
Yeah.
We mentioned off air that I have autism and you have ADHD.
Yeah.
How was that growing up as a kid? Like, for me, I struggled with, like, for you, cars was like my zone in.
Yeah.
So for you, did you struggle with like schoolwork or anything like that, or not really?
Yeah, well, probably just off the record, I'm not actually diagnosed with ADHD,
okay.
but like definitely think I'm on the spectrum there. But just this, the ADHD energy, it's I don't know. I think it's, to be honest, helped me a little bit. Like, it just keeps me busy.
Yeah,
and it sort of made me realize, like, whereas some people might have just gone, I'm in nursing now, I'll just ride this wave. I sort of went like ducked and weaved and sort of looked at other things. And even when I was at SparesBox, I was always chasing more. I started off as customer service, basically, taking phone calls, which for those that don't know, if you're a customer service person for an online-based automotive business here in Australia, you're basically every bogan's punching bag. They call up and just go, where's my stuff I ordered this morning? I expect it to be here now.
Yeah.
So you're just getting ear bashed for 8 hours a day. So after a little while, I got over it. Both my parents are journalists, and I was always quite a big writer and loved that side of things. So started writing, actually interviewed for Express Media Group, which was Full Drive Action magazine, before that got shut down, and then actually ended up sort of just internally interviewing at SparesBox and moved departments, finally got out of that customer service scene into the sort of social media management, content side of things and marketing, and then just got after it.
Yeah. So your parents were journalists?
Yeah, both mum born and bred in Adelaide and then moved here, and dad born and bred in the UK in London.
Yep.
Currently, mum did a long stint at Fairfax as, I think, chief editor there. Has since done, God, what hasn't she done? She's done Qantas Epicure, she's done Coles Magazine and website, she's doing all sorts of things. She says
Yeah,
she stays
right.
busy like me, and then Dad's a freelance art journalist.
Okay.
So he does a lot of sort of Asian art galleries, installations, exhibits, and that kind of thing. So
Yeah. Have they given you advice for like what you're doing now? Like, because you're very good at presenting, like much better than myself. I
No. Well, mate, honestly, it's sort of just I just fell into this role. I think it's actually kind of funny. Like I got into this whole social media side of things, and then I think my mum's role sort of changed from traditional print media into digital media, and she's actually asking me advice. I'm like, my social media team at work's thinking this. What do you reckon? And we sort of bounce off each other, which is quite nice. Dad's a little bit older, so he sort of he does the whole website publishing stuff and still print media, but. Yeah, I sort of just run my own race, I think.
Yeah. So with your school stuff as well, did you do any sports though or anything like that as a kid? Did you? Or did you just kind of skip it all?
No, I did. There wasn't a lot of things I didn't do. I did a lot of.
That's all right. That can be edited.
That's the beer, folks. There wasn't a lot of things that I didn't do. I did a lot of swimming, heaps of tennis, bit of cricket, bit of footy.
Yeah.
Through high school was pretty much all tennis, very competitively, and then what else? And then in year 11 and 12, I sort of did like it was tennis fixtures during high school. They always change venues and times every week, and weekend, which is quite annoying. So I actually ended up switching to just senior weights and training, which is basically just weightlifting and fitness. So it was a lot shorter. It was the same time, the same spot every week. So it was just made it easier for scheduling and that kind of thing. Schedule your life around really. So did that for year 11 and 12 to focus on studies, which didn't really do, but that's what I told everyone. And then just
yeah. Well, Brooke did actually a bit of swimming, so Brooke's got that in her background.
Yeah, so many years in the pool. Did you do it through primary and high school?
Mostly just primary, a little bit high school, but always in the pool. But then sort of I got a love, like a strange love for ocean swimming as well. Yeah. So I really enjoy that too, and I do a bit of free diving and scuba diving and bits and pieces. And I don't know, this is like sort of the ADHD energy, right?
Yeah.
I'm just like
Love
anything I can do, I will do, and never half-ass it. I'm just all in, balls to the walls, and just tackle it head on and hope for the best.
Did any of these sports involve a motor?
They actually didn't. So because mum and dad were both inner city, quite I don't know, just sort of lower North Shore, never really had an interest. Dad was a car guy from back when he was in the UK. He had what did he have? Oh God, I can't even remember. He had a whole collection of old Minis and Land Rovers and cool stuff like that. But then he moved to Australia, and I think that sort of passion sort of fell where the prices were just so much more over here than what they are back home. But never really had much motorsport influence up until when I started just letting my attention span shift from school and start watching it on YouTube and that kind of thing. And then I only really sort of got into the motorsport world and the full driving world sort of probably 3 years out of school, three or 4 years out of school, where we sort of was working in the marketing team at SparesBox, and we started doing some work with people like Driving Solutions and sponsoring different supercars or Super 2 teams and that kind of thing, and just spent a bit more time around the racetrack. And had my Sylvia and stuff, which I took to some drift days at SMSP and that kind of thing, and sort of just enjoyed it and loved it, but never really had it as a child, which I think isn't really a regret. It's probably the wrong word, but I wish I'd been around it. I wish I'd been brought up with motorbikes and quad bikes and stuff on a farm, because it would have probably put me few paces ahead as a driver and a rider than what I am now. Yeah,
because people obviously watching from your YouTube channel and the podcast, the reason I brought you on here, because I thought you would have had that motorsport influence, but you've actually just randomly come on through SparesBox, and that's how you got into cars, really, hey?
Yeah, I'd always loved cars, and actually the way I got hired at SparesBox is quite a funny story. I was working at a cafe and had been the same cafe for 3 years, just as the larrikin young barista there, and sort of everyone in the morning, you're basically their therapist as a barista, right? You're seeing them when they're fresh out of bed, no makeup, they just had, they might have had the roughest day, the roughest morning or whatever. And I started seeing this regular, Pete, and he was always coming in and getting his latte or whatever. And one day I'd noticed this logo on his shirt. He had an overshirt on, and just poking through the chest was the OG SparesBox logo, which was sort of like an animated emoji spark plug.
Yep.
And I'd actually the week before just bought a new mechanical fuel pump for my 60 series from SparesBox. And I was like, I freaking know that. I know that logo. So we just started chatting. I was like, man, we're like, the SparesBox shirt, right? He's like, yeah, like I'm the operations manager, right? This startup and all that sort of stuff, which SparesBox was 7 years ago.
Yeah, right.
And just got chatting, and, you know, he went on his way. I was there just making coffee still, and then fast forward a couple of weeks, and we just kept chatting, and, you know, he was there every few days. He's a Lower North Shore guy as well. You know, started chatting, what do you do outside of work? I told him I just tinker with my broken cars and stuff, and push come to shove, he sort of said, well, if you want a job with SparesBox, like, we're looking for sort of technical salespeople and customer service guys, and sort of, you know, said, I could probably do this, and then, you know, suddenly the nursing, you know, I stopped going to you know, lectures, and the days at the cafe started getting reduced, and my hours at SparesBox started increasing, you know, and going up, and before I knew it, I was full time there and into it, and nothing else really mattered. Yeah,
right. So when you were the barista, you were still doing the nursing degree. Yeah. And then trying to juggle all three.
There was a lot on. I was flat out like a lizard drinking, you wouldn't believe. Like, it was just like, you know, like, you got a degree going here, which is like 3 days a week at ACU in North Sydney, but also trying to make coffees and earn enough money to keep all my broken cars running. And, you know, an old petrol 60 series with the carby motor in it is not financially viable to do on the budget that I was on. But hell, I was trying. And then eventually, you know, I was like, I love making coffee, and I think about it all the time. But you know, the smart decision at the time was to move into a more probably permanent role, and looking back, it's probably the best thing I did.
Yeah, you got to actually explain to me SparesBox, because for me, that's how I spotted you, through Juice, who got sponsored, right? Jaden Ojeda, who I want on the podcast, right?
Yeah, no, so, Juice, mate, get over here. It's a damn comfy couch, and I'll leave you some beers.
So as I said, I saw it through Jaden. SparesBox appeared on a Super 2 car.
Yep.
But you were explaining like how it was like the OG logo. So where was it Marrickville? Was that where it was at?
Yeah, so SparesBox was sort of, it's actually like quite a cool story. Like, a lot of startups, Automotive Superstore, a very similar story, and a lot of those sort of cool automotive startups now are everywhere. But like anything, it was founded by 3 guys, and Leon, who was one of the founders and the CEO, I'm still really close mates with. I rent part of a warehouse space off him to store some stuff, and he's got his cars stored there and that sort of thing. So still, I think that'll be like a lifelong friendship made there. But 3 guys started it, and the easiest way I describe it to people is they had a dream of basically making a super cheap auto all online. With holding no stock and you know, and first in, first out, or just in time. I don't know. There's a proper marketing term and business plan term for it, but, you know, they had a dream, and it just snowballed, I think, and took off, and they sort of pioneered that space, and they sort of moved into this place in St. Peter's, and then, like any sort of rapidly growing obsession, they're going, we've outgrown this space, so we're like, rent next door, rent upstairs, rent over here. Just started like renting all these places until they had, you know, a full warehouse here and an office of almost 100 people at its peak. So it turned into a massive operation. And then, when it got acquired by an American-based corporate, the guys got bought out. So I guess they've you know, they're okay. Leon's just got back from 8 months in Europe sailing around, so he's done okay.
Want to hear more? Each week we will share the hottest clips from our guest interviews on YouTube. But to hear the full episode, make sure to subscribe or follow us on your favourite podcast platform.